What's going on, Forcible players? Ryan Miles here from Ontilt Gaming, here with episode number 13 of the Daily Mileage. So I know I've been gone for a couple days, haven't been sick and whatnot. I hope you enjoyed my brother's video, but we're going to finally talk about the ban list and the entire format that's in front of us, right? So I've got a couple decks that I am going to predict are going to be tier 1 in the next format. They might not all be tier 1, but I'm hoping I get some of them right. I haven't playtested yet. I'm going to go ahead and throw that out there now, so I'm sure some of you guys have already gotten a hold of some cards or just played on Untap and gotten some things going. I've done absolutely zero testing. I'm going to be playing this week, and I'll probably do an update on this next week, and we're going to lead up to like Collinsville. It's kind of like our Monday, Sunday video will be what do I think about the format, what has changed based on my playtesting, that kind of stuff. So as you know, the ban list ended up being Ava, the doll, I don't remember her actual name, Ruin Story, True Blade, but we didn't ban Sacred Elf, so that's got some serious implications in my opinion. And then Evil Genie. Now we did see a lot of the European Scheherazade lists especially weren't even running Evil Genie, they were running Puppet Master instead. But with Ava banned, you know, Puppet Master becomes a little bit less good because you lose that tall 2-drop doll slot, right? Well, let's get into the list, right? So this is going to be in no particular order. It's just 5 decks that I think are probably really, really strong and make everything else unplayable. So you're still not going to see Shayla. You're still not going to see that stupid Panda deck that you want to play. You're not going to see pretty much anything. There might be like some Feast thing that I still haven't found yet, but I'm not going to like even think about that deck until I like actually get into testing. So my 5 decks without any playtesting are, number 1, and this isn't in order, but Lumia, green, red, white Lumia. So green, red obviously gets a lot of power for Lumia with the Ataraxia City of Verdant Green that we obviously saw. I know I made that video about the green, red, black deck, but it is a little bit kind of slow and mid-rangey, and I think there's a lot of fast decks that are going to just take advantage of that kind of strategy. So you have to be white so that you get access to things like Miscalculation, which is, I think, going to be one of the strongest cards in the format for the non-aggro decks. Being able to remove an attacker for 1 mana is just super, super good, and it's super, super important that you just have 1 mana answers to not taking a bunch of damage early on. So green, red, white Lumia with the City of Ataraxia, Rachel, probably like Naya stuff, like the red, white stuff, like Linearl Thotep, just being able to flip your ruler and gain life so you can stabilize. I'm not sure if it'll go full Faiers command. Like you can do pretty well with just like Rachel control lock and stuff. And like 4 miscalc, 4 severing wins, and some number of Fairies spell. But as far as like an actual win condition goes, I think it's just going to be the ruler. We know that Dylan Hunt got 2nd place at GP Montreal, the first GP of this last format, and actually lost to Scheherazade in the finals. So I think something like that is going to be modified to contain City of Verdant Green and Miscalculation, and that'll be pretty strong. Next up, Kirik, I think, is the obvious choice. Green-red Kirik is just going to be super, super good. Most of the cards I talked about in my actual last video, the most efficient cards of the format, that kind of stuff, were Kirik cards. You've got Hoel Pig Squadron, you've got Ground and Air Supremacy, you've got the Kirik, Shayla, Modal Spell. Like, those are all just really, really good cards that help Kirik a lot to become even more dominant, and it's already like kind of the number 2 deck. So I think red-green Kirik is like the obvious choice. It's like one of the decks that you're going to have to beat if you expect to be anything, and that's where the decks like the fringe decks that you want to be good are going to get absolutely clapped by Kirik just because it's so fast, draws a lot of cards with the battle art stuff. It's going to be a problematic deck, so I think it's definitely tier 1. Next up, I think green-red Faier might make a comeback. So when we think back to the first set that came out, right, it was something, and Faier was introduced. Green-red Faier was like the number 1 deck. It was like it was before the GP format. It was only being played at ARGs and like maybe some European events. When the second set came out, Green-red Faier stopped being a deck, and then green-black Faier started being a deck. But the reason that green-black Faier stopped being a deck is because it relied on Sacred Elf and Fiery Fox to ramp into flipping your ruler and then also playing Mariabella. And Sacred Elf lost to True Blade, which was printed in the second set, and Mariabella lost to Otherworld Dreams, which was printed in the second set, right? So we banned Otherworld Dreams, and then we kept True Blade around, and then the third set dropped, and you're like, oh, well, why didn't Green-red Faier come back then? Well, we printed Scheherazade, we printed Last Days of Powerless Dragonoid, and Scheherazade just beat everything. So now that Scheherazade's gone, Otherworld Dreams is gone, and True Blade is gone, I think green-red Faier just, you know, comes kind of right back up, like it gets to play Mariabella on turn 2, turn 3, and have a really good time doing it. Whether or not it's better than Kirik, I don't know. Once again, haven't tested anything yet. We'll have to wait and see. But I think Maribel is a pretty good card overall. We've seen that through, almost a year now, how good Maribel can be. So I think Red-Green Faiers is going to make a comeback and be a tier 1 deck, or at least something that you have to be worried about. Next up, I think Imul is probably pretty good. It's going to be green, white, black Imul in particular. So it's kind of like the control deck I talked about that I played at Montreal and I've updated since then, and I almost played, and I ended up playing Fox instead, right? So what Imul's going to have going for it is it's going to have a lot of control tools in the form of hand disruption and for miscalculation, but it's also going to have stabilization with a lot of life gain available to it. Not only is the ruler able to gain a lot of life in a lot of situations, but if you really ball hard for it, you can even play Lorite's Disciples, which is the new 3-mana 7/7 that turns into a 9/9. I'm not going down the list so far. There's actually not a lot of decks that Lorite is super good against. Like, it's good against Faiers, but it's not super good against Kirik, and green-red Lumia it's kind of good against, but not particularly. Like, you're just delaying the inevitable. You're actually stopping any impactful abilities like Captain Hook you would be. So Imul could play Lorite's Disciples for additional drain against the Kirik decks, but the 4 miscalc and like the Gil Lapis to easily search miscalc and the potential to have life gain to stabilize is where I think Imul's going to have a foothold against the aggro decks. It's got a natural counter on the ruler side to Lumia decks, where it can stop the flicker by untapping things, and then it's just a grindy control deck where it's going to use Life-Stealing Altar and Rachel and Galapis to be able to have a lot of removal available and just take care of threats. So that's a deck that I expect to see. I'll probably do a deck profile on that next week, but it's something that I'm excited to test first and foremost. That's the deck that I'm really excited for. Even though I don't necessarily think it's the best deck, it's what I want to play. And the 5th deck that I think is going to be really good is actually Scheherazade. I 100% think they should have banned this goddamn ruler. I think that even without Ava, even without Ruin Stories, even without Evil Genie, I think that Scheherazade's first couple turns are very good against aggro decks. You get to go Callstone Pass, Scarlet's Agony your attacker, turn 2 play a doll. The card draw doll I think is actually pretty good here. The 2-mana 5/5 that when it dies draws a card, I think is playable. I think you get to play Puppet Master and you get to play the 5/5 doll as your 2-drop doll. Your J Activate is still the best J Activate in the game. You're no longer like worried about hitting Legend 5. You're not like, oh, I want to keep my Rune Stories flipped down and make sure I still have late game. Like, that's not an issue anymore. Like, you're just going to play your stories, and when you hit Legend 5, like, you don't have to turbo them out anymore. You just get to use them as you need, and if you're like, oh, I want to flip my J Ruler, that's when you just go, okay, these cards aren't doing anything, let me flip my ruler, put a card on top, get a doll for my deck. Oh, look, it's an Ava, put a card on bottom. Or, oh, look, it's a 13/13 against this aggro deck that says anytime you deal damage to me, you take damage too. Like, I think Scheherazade's J Activate is still super powerful. I think having dolls of Quick Cast is still super powerful. I think having an extra 5 cards at the start of the game is super powerful, especially having access to Last Days of the Powerless Dragonoid, because I think Faiers is going to be good, and I think Kirik's going to be good. So just all these things put together makes me think that Scheherazade is actually still going to be not only a viable deck, but probably a tier 1 deck. So hopefully, if that is true, like, we can just ban the goddamn ruler and get this over with. And last but not least, I do want to give an honorable mention to this list. I was thinking Scarlet. I don't know enough about Scarlet to really confidently say that Scarlet is going to be a tier 1 deck, but I'm actually going to go with Raya. So Raya, critically, is a pretty potent control deck in the fact that it has a lot of 2-for-1s available to it. The problem with Raya has always been that it has a problem generating mystery counters, but there's actually a decent number of those cards nowadays, and you don't need to awaken every single card. Like, you probably don't play Dark Knight Butterfly, even though I really want to. Like, 2 mystery counters is just too much of a cost to only kill 1 card. I'm thinking about cards like Sword of the New Moon, where it just 1 mana kill a 1-drop. That's really good against Lumia because now you're 1-for-1ing on their Sacred Elves. And then you can awaken it to kill a 4-drop. That's really good against Mariabella. It's really good against everything that Kirik wants to be doing. Like, just 1 mana kill your 2-drop or high, like your 2-drop or your 3-drop or your 4-drop. That's super good. And then you also get to be white, so you get miscalculation. So you get like 8 1-mana answers to anything that Kirik wants to do, and I think that's really, really strong. But also having the rest of the Raya package to kind of be able to be mid-rangey and slower and have a lot of like late-game power. I'm a little bit worried that Scheherazade, still being a potential tier 1 deck, is just going to make Raya unplayable, because again, having mainboard access to Last Days of the Powerless Dragonoid is super, super good, and the fact that Raya doesn't have good mystery counter generation, or like accidental mystery counter generation, means that an early Last Days will make Raya stumble to be able to like like really come back into it. And Raya doesn't have an easy answer to Scheherazade's obnoxious flip outside of Final Battle. But depending, like, I don't know, man. We've been seeing like Sherry play Vanish, and how the deck has like 12 more slots to play with. Like it's hard to say what they're gonna do. So those are my 5. Once again, Lumia, green, white, red. Rachel, Ataraxia, miscalculation. Kirik, green, red, just full in your face aggro deck. Pretty standard stuff from what we've been seeing. Just upgraded with the new cards from the new set. Faiers, green, red, once again, just flashing back to the first couple tournaments of the format, of the set that I mean, the cluster. And it's because we lost True Blade, and we lost Otherworld Dreams, and we lost Scheherazade, which were the 3 things that were keeping it in check. I will talk about this a little bit more. It's going to be really interesting to see how the Kirik Faiers matchup goes, and that's like something I just want to see. And I might be completely wrong about Faiers, because if Faiers just gets clapped by Kirik because Kirik's just faster, then Faiers not going to be a deck. But I haven't tested, so that's what I'm thinking, right? That's what I'm brewing. Scheherazade still exists potentially, and it's got a lot of main board answers to the other threatening decks in the format. And then Imul's just kind of like a pet project. I hypothesize a world where this deck is going to be good. It's going to be a little bit worse if Scheherazade is still good, just because Scheherazade's like a grindier control deck. Oh, one more thing about Scheherazade. I almost completely forgot about this. So the way that Scheherazade can still have like a grindy late game is it's going to play more cleaning dolls, because it needs more dolls, because it's going to play Puppet Master, right? It's going to play Magic Crested Darkness, which is a card and like stuff that we saw at like the first European GP, where there was a bunch of like slow tempo decks. Like they were still playing Ava, but they were playing like Kaguyu's Moonbeam Butterfly and stuff, and they weren't like as refined as the later decks were. They were playing like 2 to 3 Cleaning Doll to beat Shackles of Ice, but because they were playing excessive copies of Cleaning Doll, they were playing Magic Crest of Darkness. So Magic Crest of Darkness says, it's a 1-mana black edition, says get a Resonator from your graveyard back to your hand. Cool. And then it just stays on the field after you do that. So you use Cleaning Doll to pop your Magic Crest of Darkness, and you get to flip a story back down. So depending on the matchup that you're in, like if you're against, the Kirik deck, you can flip back down your Last Days of the Powerless Dragonoid and be able to cast it again. And like there's no, because you're not like the only Legend 5 like utility that you care about anymore is gonna be your J-Activate. You're not like worried about turning off your Genies or making your Avas smaller. Like it's a completely different way to play Scheherazade, but I think it's still completely viable. And the byproduct of playing Cleaning Doll is that you get to have a pretty interesting Lumia matchup, because you get to kill their Ataraxia, their City of Verdant Green. You get to kill that, and then flip stories back down. You get to kill Imul's Life-Stealing Altars if they haven't resolved the 0 yet, which is the Ray the Blackout that flips into 0. It protects your additions from targeting too, because it's all entities you control, which is neat. So yeah, I think that Cleaning Doll is going to like see a bit more play and be super good, and also make Scheherazade less vulnerable to Shackles of Ice, which is stupid, but I don't think there's any blue decks in Tier 1 at the moment. So, and then yeah, Raya Black White X. I'm pretty sure it's going to be Black White Green, but Black White Red maybe, Black White Blue. I don't see red or blue. It might just be Black White, but I think it will be Black White Green. So that's another deck. But yeah, that's my thoughts on the format. So after next weekend, when I do some testing throughout the week, I'll probably stream throughout the week, and then next weekend I'll do an update to this and say, all right, these are the decks that I've played. This is garbage. This is great. Here's an update. And we're going to be leading this up to ARG Atlantic City, where we're going to figure out what deck I'm playing for that. And then the week after ARG Atlantic City is going to be GP Collinsville. So hopefully everyone has some idea, learning from me, what decks are going to be cool by then, and we can shape a meta together. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Feel free to disagree with me in the comments, and hope you guys have a great one. Take it easy.